It does give me purpose. And I have to say that our noble purpose is care you can trust, results that matter. And I love that. And it really resonates because there are so many patients, consumers, people on the other side that have this anxiety time until they get their results. And they're trusting that we care about them, that I'm thinking for me, for everyone on our team, is thinking about what we can do to serve them. And that really aligns with who I am and what I'm called to do.
It takes something a little more to lead with impact. I'm Lisa Nichols, author of Something Extra, and this podcast was inspired by our daughter Allie, whose additional chromosome has shaped how I see people in leadership. Each episode features conversations with inspiring leaders from around the world about what truly defines how they lead and serve others. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It helps more people discover the show. And if you'd like to go deeper, my book, Something Extra, is available on Amazon and through other major book retailers. Today, I'm joined by Sonya Engle, a true powerhouse in the healthcare and operational space. She currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer at Sonora Quest Laboratories, where she oversees massive diagnostic workflows that impact millions of patient lives every single year. But beyond her impressive executive title, she's a passionate servant leader, a champion for workplace culture, a dedicated community advocate, and a resilient cancer survivor who brings deep, lived experience to everything she touches. Well, Sonya Engle, hi, dear friend. It is so good to see you. Listen, if we have to do a podcast together to get to see one another, that's okay with me, but I just adore you. I'm so grateful to you to make the time to be on the show today.
Lisa, I am thrilled and I adore you, and you just inspire. And I'm so thankful for this time and excited to be with you today.
We're going to have fun. And there's a lot to Sonya. I mean, my goodness, Sonya. So you lead Sonora Quest Laboratories as the COO. I think you relocated from California to Arizona in about 2019 to take on that role. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a lot to you, big responsibilities. We're going to talk about that. Can you just real quickly before we get into it, and then I'm going to get into kind of when you were 8 years old. We're going to go all the way back to when you were 8. But tell our listeners, Sonora Quest, it's huge. I mean, you guys got 3,200 employees. I mean, tell us a little bit more about Sonora.
Yeah. Quickly, Sonora Quest is the largest integrated laboratory network in the U.S. And what that means is laboratory testing is information, right? When you go get your blood drawn, or if you have a biopsy for cancer, there's valuable information that the laboratory testing professionals perform analysis to give you information. And what I like to say is we're behind the scenes, but we are unlocking powerful information. 70% of the insights that doctors use to make decisions about you as a patient come from laboratory tests. We do about 1 million tests per year at Sonora Quest Laboratory.
1 million tests per year.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. I had no idea that it was that many. So you guys are really kind of that, like you said, that one that's really given insights to the physicians on how to treat. It's just so important. And you can even, there's so much predictive stuff right now, right? And predictive tests to even see, do you have the gene for Alzheimer's, or, the BRCA gene, or, those kind of things.
Spot on, Lisa. And it's so not just being a patient, but to your point, being an informed consumer and knowing that your genetic information doesn't change. And we have genetics tests that help you to see if you can process or metabolize medication so that you're not potentially taking medication that isn't going to be effective in your body, or maybe even harmful.
Right? Yeah. Oh goodness, so important. That's got to give you so much purpose every day, Sonya, knowing that you're in an organization like that is truly affecting lives.
It does give me purpose. And I have to say that our noble purpose is care you can trust, results that matter. And I love that, and it really resonates because there are so many patients, consumers, people on the other side that have this anxiety time until they get their results, and they're trusting that we care about them, that I'm
Mhm.
thinking for me, for everyone on our team, is thinking about what we can do to serve them. And that really aligns with who I am and what I'm called to do.
Well, okay, so that's the perfect segue. Thank you for setting me up, because I want you to go back to when you were 8 years old.
Okay.
And you figured out when you were 8 years old that helping was part of your gonna be part of your calling, helping people. I think you worked I think it was a friend of your family that had a medical practice. And what were you doing at 8 years old, Sonia?
I know that sounds
Helping
crazy,
the practice, it does, but
right?
what were you doing?
Yeah, there were child labor laws, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, we my parents were teenagers when they got married, so they met in French class in high school. They didn't know what they were doing. They were literally just out of high school, and I'm so thankful for people like this family friend who was like a grandfather to me that allowed me on Saturday afternoons to shadow him. So that kind of inspired the interest and desire to be in healthcare, but really to serve. Because he was originally an educator, he was a teacher, and he went back to school to become a medical doctor. But my little job at 8 years old was putting cotton balls in each exam room, a little bit of filing, and I took that job so seriously that I just said, Saturday morning, I need to get to work. That's the way I started my work ethic. I think pretty early on, but that's the way God made me.
I love that. I love that. And to your point, it really inspired your love for healthcare. In fact, I think I read that you originally thought you wanted to be a physician,
I
right?
did. And, it was those early days of seeing what it's like to interact with patients. And I thought that would be something I like because I've always been a people person. My Myers Briggs, I'm an extreme extrovert. No surprise, like you, Lisa, I'm sure.
Yes.
um, but so that made me think that I wanted to be a physician. And I actually, when I went to undergrad. I went to University of Maryland. Grew up in Philadelphia. It's a whole nother story. But I started off engineering. My dad was an electrical engineer, and I thought I wanted to be like my dad. When you're that young, you don't know what you want to do.
You don't know. You don't even know what it means to be an electrical engineer or anything, right? So it's like, oh, I'll do what my dad does.
Exactly. And so I'm thankful that through that exposure, I was literally in a program called the Pre-Engineers Exposure Program. And so, again, as a teenager, doing my air quote work in my little job, I
Yes.
had the boss at that time, first day of work there, say, Sonia, he sat me down in his office and he said, work for pay and pay for work. Any questions? And I said no, and he sent me on. So so I went into undergrad with a love for people, a love or interest in science, whether it be engineering or pre med. And I found that I was young and immature, and I really didn't buckle down and get really serious. And so I was at a fork in the road, a decision point. Had would need to like get serious about school if I was going to be a doctor, and it just
Right.
wasn't in me. It wasn't in my heart, and I was paying for
Mhm.
school myself, and I just could not see incurring all that debt and
Yes.
trying to, I guess, buck against my nature because I just wanted to hang out and have fun rather than
Mhm.
do what I needed to do. So I ended up switching to business, which I also really enjoyed business at an early age.
Yes, I love that. Well, I think you started on the front lines, I read, as a specimen processor,
Mhm.
um, and I love that you did that. I love that you started on the front lines
Mhm.
of that, Sonia, because I just believe it's like I don't know, I just know so many leaders that have risen, through the ranks, and they
Mhm.
started, like, where like on that front line, right where the business happens.
Yeah.
So I love it. So how do you think that experience shaped you as the leader that you are today, starting on the front lines like that?
I strongly recommend it. I mean, there wasn't a show called Undercover Boss back in those days, so
Right.
I think that if nothing else, you get an understanding, soup to nuts, how the process works. So that
Yes.
was true for me. And when I started, that was an entry level job. This was way back, I won't say when, but I wasn't the fastest person in terms of productivity, but quality, I was on top. And I can remember having conversations with my boss and saying, well, there's a patient on the other side. I got to get this right. And so that
Yes.
really informed the way I understood the work that we do and how important it is that we do it right. And because fast and wrong doesn't help.
Right. Well, I'm glad that that's your highest value.
Yeah, yeah,
When you're talking about patient care, quality needs to be at the top, really,
exactly.
so not necessarily being fast. Were there ever moments, Sonia, when you look back through your career, because you've done a lot. Were there ever moments where you're like, I could never have imagined myself being here? Or was it more like I knew I would be somewhere in this, because of that early experience of knowing that you love to help people?
Lisa, I love that question, and I've thought about it so much throughout my career. Uh, I was the firstborn, and my brother was almost 5 years younger than me. So I enjoyed being in that leadership position, and for reasons that were beyond my control, I grew up with just my dad, and my brother. So my mom
Mhm.
wasn't there, and I just had all this responsibility, and I welcomed it, and I took it really seriously. And so there was, a time pretty early in my career. It was actually my first promotion. I was 21 years old, and I became a supervisor of a small group in a stat lab. And I was leaving work one evening, and a young lady said to me, "How did you get that promotion?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "They don't promote us." And she was a black woman like me, and
Mhm.
I just did not think that way. And so, what I saw in that moment is that I saw leadership as an opportunity, a privilege, and my mindset started to shift because I had started at that point when I got this early promotion. I set my target really high. I literally,
Mhm.
with my little supervisor business card on my dream board, I made little business cards from supervisor to manager to regional to vice president to CEO. That was really the dream that I set pretty early on. But then it occurred to me that it's not just about me. And so it made me realize at various points in my career, my journey, that this is not about me. And that was so powerful and freeing. And in that moment, and then it continues to be like a daily, look myself in the mirror and say, it's not about you. What does God have you to do today in this responsibility that
Yeah.
leadership gives you?
Sonia, oh my goodness, that so resonates with me because I think when you're younger, or at least in my experience, it was more about climbing the ladder but there is a point where you come and you're like, "No, I am here to serve."
Hmm.
And to your point, this is not at all about me. This is about who I can carry with me, along the way, and how am I serving the team? And yeah, I remind myself of that all the time. And it really, honestly, it's there's so much more joy
Hmm.
in that. If you think it's all about you, I mean, there's really no joy in that. I mean, there really isn't. But when you know that you've helped another person or, seen them on their career trajectory and helped guide them, there's nothing that gives you more joy than that.
I completely agree. There is more joy and satisfaction
Yes.
because
Yes.
I don't know about you. I know a little bit about you. You are a very driven and talented person when it's about me. So I was an athlete So I
Mm-hmm.
loved, I played field hockey.
Competing.
I love
Mm-hmm.
competing. I played tennis. But when it's just about me and the score, there's always more. You're always striving.
Isn't that the
And
truth?
when it's
Yes.
not about you, it can be about what does success look like in the eyes of the person that you're serving, whether it be a customer, a patient, your employees. As a leader, we are servants. We serve and care for and shepherd and develop and love on our people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could not agree more. No, I love that. And to your point, when it is about you, it's like, okay, that next thing. And it's like, boy, that's empty at the end of the day. And it's never enough,
It's
Sonia.
no,
It's
no.
never enough when you have that kind of mindset, right? I love that. Um, well, what lessons did you learn, through your and we've just talked about one, but are there other lessons that you learned earlier on in your career that serve you now as the COO?
Yeah. So one lesson that just I love is there was a CEO, Ken Freeman is his name, and he's world renowned, respected. And I had the privilege to, in a company at that time of 17,000, uh, he granted me an interview. And so I had a list of questions, and I just stayed to the questions. I felt like this big CEO, this publicly traded important company. I can't waste the
Mhm.
time. And so I stayed to the scripted questions. And there was so much that I really wanted to know about him. And so
Right.
I stayed to the questions, but I didn't really get to dig into the things I was really curious about. Well, fast forward many years later, when I guess I was more confident, had nothing to lose, I reached out to him. I wasn't work. He was now a professor at a university in Boston, and so I just reached out and said, 15 years ago I interviewed you, and I didn't ask you the things that I really wanted to know. He replied to my email and said he would grant another interview. And it was
Uh-huh.
just the two of us, and it was a phone call, and I asked questions. I
Give me an example,
well,
Sonia,
okay. So one of the
of
things
a
I had
question.
heard was leadership, public speaking, for example, that he had attended this professional training 17 times, and that was what was urban legend. He said at least 17 times. So one lesson was professionals, leaders, and he was a brilliant communicator.
Mhm.
He was authentic, clear, finance by background, but moved on to be CEO. So I think he had a balance of the facts and data, but then had a very approachable way about him that
Mhm.
made his communication amazing. So I didn't think he needed 17 times or even more than that, but that was, I think, honing his craft and making sure that he was the best he could be. So that was just one example. There are so many more.
I love that. He was sharpening the saw.
Yes,
We gotta always be sharpening the saw, right?
absolutely.
And getting better. We can always get better. There's a next
Yes,
level.
yes.
What a great lesson.
So the funny thing is, what I didn't know when I interviewed him, and we had this great discussion, and the humility and graciousness that he had to grant this time, this interview. The day that we got on the phone, he was actually sick, and his voice was very weak. And to me, he could have easily canceled or rescheduled, but no,
Oh, wow.
just that kind of person. That conversation, what I didn't know at the time that we spoke, maybe I should have done my research, but he was the mentor of the person that became my boss, the CEO of the company that I joined. And I
Oh
did
my
not
goodness.
know that the lessons I had learned were the same lessons that my new boss had learned over 20 plus years of being mentored by the same person. So it's unbelievable.
Wow. Sonia, there's a divine hand there that you can't make that up,
No.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, you talk a lot about servant leadership. We've already talked about it. It's not about you. You talk about you have the primary pillars of leadership style, and you talk about three different vital attributes: integrity, This is the baseline requirement without and I agree with that. Boy, if you don't have integrity, you don't have anything.
Completely agree.
First of all, because you're not going to have trust, you're not going to have there's so much that stems from that, right? Courage. And then the last one is effective communication.
Mhm.
And you just talked about that with this particular gentleman and how how good of a communicator and effective of a communicator he was. What is there anything else that you want to say about any of those three? I mean, we've kind of touched on them. So it's integrity is the baseline, courage, and then effective communication.
Yes.
Have you added any other ones since then, or are those still kind of the
There
three?
there are so many, but I would stick with those top three. And
Mhm.
I mean, integrity. I mentioned that the role that I'm in now as Chief Operating Officer for Sonora Quest Laboratories, the CEO has recently retired, and we have a new CEO, and she's wonderful. But the CEO that was in the role for almost 30 years, when I met with him, and I had worked for part of the parent company, Quest Diagnostics, and our values were very similar. And so,
Mhm.
quiz me, if you will, asking if I knew the values of the company I work for now. And I
Right.
listed them off. I mean, I knew them. I had internalized them. These are my values.
Yes.
And he said, okay, well, pick one. And I said, absolutely, it's integrity. Without integrity, it all falls apart.
Falls apart.
It does. And
Yeah.
so when Dave Dexter asked that question, it was very, very easy. And I could look back at times in my career when I'm not at this company, and I won't name the company, where there were situations that I was presented with that my North Star, my confidence, my ability to know what to do as an individual and as a leader was always very clear because I needed to do the right thing always. So
Mhm.
that's a non-negotiable for me and for the people that I surround myself with. And so to join a company where that was one of the values, and that the senior leader, the CEO, that we shared that, made it so easy. And then it was that bonus point that the person that I had seen as a leader to emulate a model, that was his
Mm.
too.
That's so beautiful. That is so good. I love that. Well, I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions and then we do need to take a quick break. Sonia, and I'm going to get a little bit more personal here. So I know that your mother, you're so passionate about healthcare. Your mother lost her battle to cancer, breast cancer at 48, which is so young. I mean, I'm sure that experience shaped you
Mhm.
somehow. I mean, tell me about that. And then I know that you went through your own battle, right? And I think I read at the time that you used one of the tests
That's right.
to even determine. So
Yeah.
tell me, I mean, I know that had to have been so hard because you were what in your you had to be in your early 20s.
So thank you. Because my parents had me so young,
Yeah,
I was a little bit,
maybe 30
yeah,
or
I had
something.
just, my mother
Yeah.
passed away. God bless her. Really, she was dying, and I was with her, and it was the day before my birthday where I was saying farewell, because she was insisting that I go back to work, but I really think that it was just hard to let go when she's
Mhm.
looking at my eyes and my hands just pleading with her not to go.
Right.
So went back to work. It was my birthday, 30th birthday, and then she passed away when I was 30 in one day. She did not pass away on my birthday, which to me, I feel like she just willed it, right? She just,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
she willed it just to hang on,
Um,
right.
but her story is one that has shaped a lot of what I do in terms of leadership with American Cancer Society.
Yes.
My mother was healthy for the most part. She, like no one in Philadelphia, because I don't know how much you know about Philadelphia, but the natural diet isn't necessarily the one that
The
is conducive
The
to.
simple seven or
Yeah,
the
exactly. A big cheesesteak
right.
is not good for you. But
Yeah.
she didn't. She ate healthy. She exercised. She was actually even responsible for starting the wellness program at her company. This is back in the early '80s. Who even heard of that back then? But she did
Yes.
that. So here's this picture of health. She detected a lump through a self exam and ignored it. She figured I have mammograms annually, and it was March. And so this lump that she found, she said, if it had been anything that I should be concerned about, it would have been detected in the mammogram. So I'm going to ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
So she ignored it and watched it grow, and until the point it was larger and larger. And when she finally went to the doctor, it was advanced. If she had gone sooner, it's possible that aggressive treatment could have prolonged her life, but
Right.
she ended up dying within 18 months. And so that was devastating. But it was kind of the end for me in a good way. You know, when you
Mm-hmm.
hit the bottom, my
Yeah.
mother, because she wasn't there for some years of my childhood, in my adult life, we became best friends. And so my best friend was dying, and
Mm.
I was having my baby girl. Um, And so I was on bed rest. I had a high risk pregnancy, which is a whole nother story. And so I couldn't be with her. So when she died, I felt like I didn't have enough time with her. I had my baby girl. So I don't know if it was a combination of depression of losing my mom and depression of having, the postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
But it was 6 months after she died when I had a house full of guests, great career, home, husband, everything the world would say should make you happy. And I
Mm-hmm.
was not. I felt like I could just drive my car off the side of the road. I
Mm.
was so sad and lost and depressed because productivity, profits, people pleasing does not satisfy.
Right.
So it was
Right.
my mother's cancer journey, her death, that led me back to a personal relationship with the Lord.
The faith.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Sonia. Well, let's end there, and we're gonna pick up there
Okay.
when
All
we
right.
come back. So we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with my dear friend Sonya Engle on the Something Extra podcast.
Hey there. In a challenging business climate like this, savvy leaders look to technology to find an edge. This can mean the difference between staying ahead of the curve or playing catch up. It's time to collaborate with the highly skilled experts at Technology Partners. Our team of technologists draws upon decades of experience for your project, with each bringing a passion for solving problems and a track record of success. How can we help you overcome your biggest technology challenges? Visit technologypartners.net to book a free consultation with one of our leaders.
So welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with my friend Sonya Engle. So Sonya, we just left a cliffhanger there. It was really your mom's passing away.
Mhm.
You were in a very dark place. I think all of us probably can relate. We've all been at least in a dark place, if not many. Um, but you knew that there was something missing
Right.
and that you needed more. And you had success. You had a husband. You had this baby. You had, by the world standards, everything that would define success. But you felt empty inside. Tell me about that journey, and then talk to me about how faith then has changed how you do everything else in your life going forward.
Thank you. Well, Lisa, that moment of the bottom was the beginning.
Yeah.
And there was no answer in myself, in my own effort, in my marriage, in anything that I could control. And so this was many years ago, before the internet, basically, which sounds so weird. So I had a house full of guests, and I pulled out the yellow pages because I had early faith, but I had walked away from my faith and just tried to live the way I wanted to live. And so I flipped through the yellow pages looking for churches. And I pick up the call, and if there was an answer, and they said they were open, that would be the indicator that's where I should go. So I found a church that was open on Mother's Day at 4 p.m. and went in and sat behind a woman that I know God sent. This woman had her back to me, but it was when she turned, it was like the eyes and arms of Jesus, just seeing and knowing all my pain, all that I was going through. And it was exactly what I needed. And that began the new beginning. I went
Mm.
and discovered whose I am, who I was, even when I was striving for all those years and feeling broken and lost and feeling not loved, not worthy, that I was loved and that the Savior was there for me and was bringing me in, and her arms wrapped around me, and she was like a mentor and guided me. I I was at the bottom, and it was the beginning of my faith journey, and it changed everything. And so that was the beginning of me learning who God was, what I was, what was true about me, that I was loved, and that the things that I had believed, and like if I were pretty enough, smart enough, made enough money. I mean, fill in the blank. There's so many enoughs. None of
Amen
that
to
was
that.
true.
Right. And what does
Yeah.
God say?
What does
You
God
are
say?
enough. You
Yes.
have everything you need in me.
Amen.
I think you're beautiful. You are my treasure.
Mhm.
I in fact, I love you so much. I sent my only son to die for you. I mean, that's when you get a hold of that, Sonia, it does. It changes everything about our identity. And
Mhm.
I think when we're rooted in that and we're confident in who we are in Him, it just allows you then to love other people. It just allows you to then go, right?
It does. It does. So that ultimately changed everything. And so that was, boy, almost, no, actually 30 years ago.
30 years
So
ago.
I have had 30 years on a different trajectory.
Mm.
And hey, I'm still, a broken sinner, and I have, fallen into some of the old traps or the lies.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it's been different.
Yeah.
And I have found that every aspect of my life, unfortunately, my first marriage ended in divorce, but God is a God of reconciliation in every way. When I even go back to that hospital room when I was saying farewell to my mother, my parents had a very tumultuous marriage. There was all kinds of reasons where there was unforgiveness.
Mhm.
My father was invited into the hospital room by my mother because she was extending peace, reconciliation, forgiveness to someone that, in my mind, didn't deserve it. But isn't that the gospel? Isn't that true? We don't deserve God's grace.
Right.
So I saw that in my mother, and that was an example, I think, throughout my personal faith journey, and actually even in my career. I have seen so many opportunities that what was meant for evil or wrong
Mhm.
be turned into something that is for good. And I look for that truth in so many ways, and I see it.
Wow. What a beautiful example your mom gave you. And I'm sure, Sonia, there have been times where maybe, someone has done something to breach trust with you, and you can even think back to your mom and how she handled herself, and just extending the olive branch. I love that. That is so beautiful.
It is.
Oh, my goodness. And you know what? And you're right. We're all on a journey. It
Right, right.
doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're perfect. No, we are not. In fact, that's why we need
Yes.
Savior, right? Is because we're
Amen.
not. And oh gosh, we could just spend a whole podcast just on this, girl. But I know, let's talk about, you had a breast cancer diagnosis at
Yes.
35. You know, um, what was going through your mind at that time? And I know that that is why you are huge with your mom and yourself, like, a big advocate for early detection and getting the testing done, right?
I am. And what I had for me, and I want for other people to have the education, the awareness, the
Mhm.
access, so that they can have a good outcome like I've had. Because
Yeah.
I've had cancer twice, and there are many people that their story is more like my mother's. And so, because of my mother's early cancer and her sister's too, I was first diagnosed with cervical cancer in my 20s. And once that was diagnosed, treated, sat across from an oncologist, and he said, you're young, and we want you to be able to have kids. And that was like a light bulb went off. I didn't even realize that my life was at risk or my future fertility. And I realized, boy, I just don't even know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's like for a lot of patients, that
Yeah.
they are like blind going. So number one, get educated and informed so that I can help myself, be there for my family, and then be in a position where I can help others as well. So because I was armed with so much information, I was having mammograms in my 20s. And so they did find some things that were suspicious pretty early on. And then I was not only able to get the biopsy to confirm that I had cancer, but at the same time have the genetics test that confirmed I was a BRCA2 gene carrier,
Mm-hmm.
which increase the probability of breast and ovarian cancer. So I went through pretty aggressive treatment, bilateral mastectomy, when I was just in my mid 30s. So that was not the ideal, but it was the decision that I knew would not only take care of the cancer, but make it so I wouldn't have to keep looking over my shoulder, worrying about it coming back.
Right, right.
That happens to other people.
Right. Yeah. So if there are female listeners out there and men too, I mean, because what we're talking about here are some of these testing that can be done, even predictive type testing, right? But don't
Absolutely.
put it off. Don't put it off. If there's anything you take away from this, the early detection is really, really important. And Sonya, I know that you've served on the American Cancer Board. I think you've been the chair of that for
Yes,
many years. I think you maybe roll off. Do you roll off this year?
I did, Lisa. Thank you. I had
Yeah.
5 years as chair. I'm very proud, and it felt so good to pass the baton. I'm still on the board, but isn't that the wonderful thing about leadership? Is succession planning?
Yes.
Is knowing that you are identifying the person that's going to take your seat. And
Right,
ready.
exactly, exactly. But well, thank you for serving. Thank you for
Oh,
serving. I know that the board work, I mean, it's important work, but it is work. It is
it is.
work
Yes, it
too.
is. Like
So
my day job. I had my day
you
job
have a
too.
day job too. I get it. I totally get it. Well, I want to just touch on this real quickly. I mean, I'm just thinking like the challenge of COVID. Wow.
Oh,
What a crisis that was, right? I think I read where you had to scale, Sonia, from 6,000 tests a day that you were doing up to 36,000 tests a day.
yes. And
That's crazy.
it is crazy. And when I think back to 2020, for us, we were not only a large employer, right? So we had our employees that were, not sure about their own health.
Mhm.
They had families. We could not close. We're 24 by 7, 7 days. So they had to come to work. I can remember employees, worried about their health, or their families saying, I don't want you coming in with the clothes that you wore when you were in a lab testing.
Right, right.
And so that scaling that you described is because we were in a worldwide pandemic, as it affected
Yeah.
everyone. And there was no ability to get what was needed to test that volume. The instruments, the reagents or chemicals, the people to do it just weren't available
Yeah.
for lots of reasons. So with that constraint, our CEO, Dave Dexter, and I give him huge credit, came up with a solution that took us from 6,000, which was what we could do with the instruments and what was available, and went to OEMs and struck up a deal that, as COO, I have responsibility to work with kind of an unproven. So we had to build the methodology, put the instruments together, because traditional testing platforms were not available. So we had to piece together kind of a very creative way,
Mm.
a solution that enabled us to build capacity to not only test for the state of Arizona, but we were in a position to be the safety net for our parent partner. We're in a joint venture. Quest Diagnostics was referring volume that they couldn't handle.
Right.
So we built capacity to test close to 60,000 patient samples per day. And to this day, I had someone join my team recently who wasn't there during the pandemic, and went to a lab tour and heard the story of this small department of 20 people that had to grow to 200 in less than 2 months. And she said, I didn't know. I had no idea. All I knew is I couldn't travel or take my kid to soccer without a lab test, a COVID PCR
Mm-hmm.
test to confirm. And you guys were doing it. That's amazing. And it's
Really?
so neat to hear that because
Yeah.
as we talked about, you do what you need to do,
Yeah.
and we're serving others, but it was so intense that there wasn't time to reflect, document. I really think there's an amazing story and what was accomplished there. And someday, hopefully, we'll get to tell that story more fully.
It will be
Because,
in the history books.
yes,
It will
yes.
be in the history books. Well, let's talk about culture a little bit and employee retention. I think you are the one that implemented the stay in interviews instead of exit interviews, right? Or was that your CPO, or was that you, Sonya?
Well, I won't take credit.
Yeah.
Our chief people officer and her team do amazing things, and I think the stay interviews, looking at the valuable insights from exit interviews,
Yes.
and also, of course, looking at our hiring. How do we attract the best? How do we make that value proposition that helps them to see our noble purpose
Yes.
and how it aligns and how we do things that other companies don't do? And it is something I'm really proud of. Sonora Quest is a leader in the market, in our industry, but in the state, we're at the top in terms of giving back, philanthropy,
Oh,
our
that's awesome.
employees serving and giving. And that is part of our value prop to help us hire and retain the people that share that value system.
Mhm.
And so we have almost 4,000 employees across our system. It's primarily in Arizona, but we're with Banner Health in 6 states sharing that value. And that, to me, is the secret,
Yes.
is to have people that want to be there because their heart is aligned with the purpose.
With the purpose, right? And I think I love that, and I know you guys talk about that. The culture, it's very intentional. My friend Mark Miller, that was VP of high performing leadership at Chick-fil-A, he said, "You
Mhm.
have a culture. It's either by accident or design."
That's right.
And you guys have designed the culture there. I mean, by listening to the employees, the state interviews, very, very intentional. Helping people see how what they are doing really aligns and floats right up to the bigger mission, and the
Yeah.
purpose of the organization, which I think is really important. I know that you're really passionate about helping people realizing their potential, developing future leaders. But Sonya, I have to ask you. We're running out of time here, and so I have to ask you the question that I ask every guest that comes on the podcast is, what do you believe, Sonya, is something extra that every leader needs?
I believe the something extra is humility and passion. I know that people think humility is like thinking less than, no, no. Humility is occupying that God space,
Mm.
who you're meant to be. Don't
Yes.
get smaller or greater.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that perspective about who you are and what you're doing as a leader, that responsibility, and align that with your passion, your purpose, knowing that you were given one more day on this earth to do something very important and do it well, I think that makes a leader someone that is inspiring, that others want to follow, that customers want to do business with, and really is a differentiator.
Oh, beautiful combination. I love it. I love it. Well, girl, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. And I just know Sonya, that your journey, all of the leadership insights that we've talked about today, I just know it's going to help our listeners. So thank you so much for investing in other people. And thank you for being my friend.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity. I just adore you. Hope to meet Allie in person sometime soon. I think she is amazing.
I know. Yes, I want you to. Well, thank you again. Have an amazing rest of the day, girl.
Thank you, you too.
Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc. 2019. To learn more about this week's guest, check out the show notes at tpi.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving us a review. Thank you for listening to Something Extra.